Welcome to Move from Center, an opportunity for connection, conversation, and shared wisdom around living, leading, and moving forward by aligning to your center. I'm your host, Dawn Strom, aligned embodiment coach and business mentor for leaders and entrepreneurs who want to create a meaningful impact and holistic success on their own terms. When I started my wellness business back in 2005, I wanted to create a business that allowed me a life that I loved and inspired a movement of healing in the lives of my clients. Years later, I'm still inspired by the power of embodiment to align us to our deep wisdom, empower our purpose, and support aligned action towards creating a meaningful impact in life and business. Tune in monthly for solo episodes and guest interviews around topics from embodiment to business strategy to support you to live, lead, and create your movement by aligning to your center.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Move from Center. This is my first solo episode that I'm going to be calling my walk and talk sessions, because I will likely be walking as I talk, because it's part of my creative process, moving my body to stay in my creative flow. And today I want to actually talk about how you can use what I call creative process, or it could also be called manifesting, kind of 3 steps of manifesting or creative process to bridge where you are now and what you'd like to create in your next evolution of your life and of your business. So this episode is going to be about 2 things. One is going to be about a big transition I made in my life over the last 6 months that was really about this creative process. So I'm going to talk about that and relate it back to a common experience that I've had in my life and business, and that I've worked with my clients a lot on in their businesses, and really with any of their goals actually. And that is the experience of feeling this kind of gap, the gap between where you are now and where you want to be. And the gap can create a lot of frustration. It can feel like you're trying to make progress, but you can't seem to get the forward momentum that you want to get. Sometimes you feel like your goals are unreachable. Or, sometimes it can cause you, if you get too frustrated in the process, to even give up on your goals. And so I want to talk about this bridge and this gap from a perspective of how you can use principles of manifesting and creative process to help you both stay in the present and bridge the gap. So I want to use as an example my experience over the last 6 months here with making a big move from Atlanta to Minnesota. With my family across country. We completely changed residence, sold our condo, bought a new house, renovated the house, transitioned our jobs and businesses as part of all this process, transitioned our child into a new school. It's been a huge, huge space of transition over the last 6 months. And when I look at the surface of it, it looks like it happened really quickly. And it did. We decided to move in February, and we moved in May. And in the process of doing all that, we got new jobs, I transitioned my business, I sold the condo, we bought a new house, all this stuff happened. But the truth is, under the surface, there was a much bigger process that had been at play for a long time. And I think it's easy to, when we're thinking about goals and creating that bridge between where we are now and where we want to be, it's easy to want it to happen immediately, and also to kind of see evidence of it happening immediately. And and oftentimes when people are sharing their experiences of change, what they're sharing is when the change actually happened, when things actually finally started to gel for them. And I think the truth is that underneath the surface, in order for any big change or transformation to happen, it really takes time, and it takes a lot of different micro actions that start to produce momentum towards a new experience. And so that gap between the feeling of where you are now and where you want to be, with whatever goal that is, it could be a relationship goal, health goal, business goal, life goal. I want to share with you kind of the 3 phases that I worked through really over the last 3 to 5 years actually, that paved the way for this bigger shift in the last 6 months, and how you can use those to situate into your own creative process around your goals in a way that closes the gap a little bit and creates a creative bridge for you, and a bridge to the future of what you want to create, but also, an understanding of how anytime we're creating something new in our lives, we're really turning over the past. So I look at the present moment as really a collection of experience, really an experience, right, of what's come about from what I decided to create in the past. And so if you think about creating something new in the future, you have to start by really turning over the soil of what you've already created. And so the first step of this process, which I'm going to just call the creative manifesting process, would be to first of all decide that you want something new, whether it's in your dealing with your health, with your life. Maybe it's just a holistic sense of you're just ready to create a new experience and way of being in the world. Maybe you're ready to create something completely new with your business. Maybe you're ready to start a business, to transition out of something else and into starting a business from scratch. Maybe you're iterating something that you've already created and you are ready to make a new level of it. But at the core of it is a decision. It's a decision to direct your energy towards creating. And that in itself has energy. And I want to encourage this first step when you think about this in your life. You don't have to know the how. So you don't have to know what's going to come. You don't have to know how it's going to come. You're going to work on the what, but you don't need to know how or exactly what the path is. And the first step that I've seen people do when they start to create a goal for the future is they start to get all worked up in the struggle of, well, I don't know how that's going to happen. And so this was really my experience in the start of deciding to make this bigger shift and transition. This was actually about 5 years ago. And my husband and I we just knew that it was time. We had to start to move forward in a new way. We knew that what we'd currently created in our lives was great, and it was definitely a manifestation of what we'd wanted. We'd wanted to have a business together. We'd wanted to, have a situation where we could both be co-parents with our kid and spend a lot of time together as a family. And we'd done that through having a shared business and having a brick and mortar studio. And we realized that, and this was a couple years into having our daughter, that it wasn't going to be something that we could grow going forward, and that we needed to create something different. And of course, the struggle immediately emerged around, well, how are we going to do that? What is that going to look like? How are we going to make that happen? And so step one is going to be to decide that you want to create something new, but to let go of the how, because the how is going to create a struggle at a certain point in the process. And with creative process in general, the how will emerge as you deepen the process, as you go deeper into what it is that you want to create and get more clear on that. And a lot of times what the how is will be completely different than anything you could have imagined before, right? Because when you first start to create something new, you're starting from what you've already created. You're starting from the strategies, from the ways of looking at things that are something that was a manifestation of a past desire. So step two is going to be lean into what it is that you want to create from an embodied perspective. And what I mean by that is lean into your lived experience. And so in some level, this is about imagining, but it's imagining from the experience of what it feels like, of what you want to actually live, be, and experience. And so we did that as part of this process. So once we decided that we did want to create a change, and we decided to let go of the struggle of struggling with how it could or couldn't be possible to do something different, or how we felt stuck or not stuck, and we decided that we were just going to decide to create a change and lean into what that could look like, we started to explore what it would feel like, what were the things that we really wanted to be in this next phase. How do we want to be spending our time? What do we want our daily life to look like? What was going to be a new focus and priority for us? And what really emerged for us was community. We had our daughter was moving into school age years, and we wanted to really find a community. We wanted to live in more of a home, and we were in a condo at the time. We wanted a different kind of neighborhood community. We wanted to feel really supported as a family with a sense of community kind of as a whole. We wanted to be in a neighborhood with kids, have more resources that were directed towards family. And so that emerged as a huge value. And we started to really lean into what that would look and feel like for us. And we didn't know where that was yet. We knew that it's at some point involved likely moving to a new property, but we were open to even staying where we were. We just wanted to create this new experience of community and what was going to support us in this next phase of life and what we wanted to create. And then we started to just listen in and try different things out. So like I said, and I call this next process the third phase here. So the first phase is to decide and to let go of the way you think you know, or let go of the how. The second phase is to lean into that lived experience of what you want to create. And the third phase is to start creating it now. And I also refer to this as kind of turning over the soil, meaning we started to take our current life. So without trying to make any massive decisions yet, we just started to gradually work with our current life, kind of like clay on a potting wheel, and just start to mold it a little differently. We started to seek out new opportunities to cultivate community. We started to explore different school options in our current location. We just started to explore everything that was going to be possible for what we wanted, where we currently were. And I also like to call this turning over the soil, because it starts to really turn over your energy of where you've been and how you've been organizing your energy into what you want to do with it next. So one of the insights that really became clear to me in this process over the last 6 months was that what we had in Atlanta, the kind of constellation of different points of experience. We had our condo, we had our business, we had this really easy life of living in a condo without having to do a lot of maintenance. It was an easy way to own a home. We did have some different kinds of community there and so forth, but it was really it was like the expression of what we had desired, at least 5 years earlier, even before we had a kid. It was an expression of wanting to, have an easy home, an easy living situation where we didn't have to do a lot of work with it, and to have a business that could allow us to just have a lot of free time and do what we wanted to do with our lives and our free time. So we'd really manifested something that had been in alignment with our desires in the past. And I realized in this process that this step 3 is really about starting to turn over and pull back that energy, right? Because that's energy that's living in all those little micro decisions that had created the scenario we were already in, and start to turn them over and turn them into new desires. Desire for community, desire for, looking for community on a level of school for our child, community on a level of extended community, friends, family relationships, and so forth. And also looking for how to evolve our work and businesses in a way that would support us to have more of the family life that we wanted, and also continue to meet our lifestyle and our income goals. And so that third phase of really turning over that soil and starting to create what you want to create now, and then listen for the way. Listen for, as you start to live into what you want to create, it'll start to become clear what it is that you need to do, what the right decisions are to actually move forward and create that path. And that's essentially what ended up happening for us. So we started to lean into that and, creating more community. And the more we started to create what we wanted in Atlanta, the more we realized we definitely weren't in the living situation we wanted to stay in. And we started to realize that we didn't have one that we wanted to move into in Atlanta. And we didn't know, we'd been looking at moving to Minneapolis because I'm from here and my family was here, and we knew that there would be, different areas we could live here that would meet a lot of the needs and goals or experiences that we wanted to have, for community. And what ended up happening is, as we were going along making all these different kind of micro decisions, new opportunities started to emerge. So my husband decided this is kind of as the pandemic hit, and then was, through those couple of years of the pandemic, my husband decided he wanted to shift into a new career path that would remove one of the blocks that we had felt from making any big transitions, which was his sort of bodywork business that was very in person and hard to move from place to place. Regardless of where we wanted to move, it was going to be a big transition. So he ended up getting a job and kind of shifting that scenario so that we could easily make a move. And then through the pandemic, my business became largely online, shifted more into business coaching and consulting and holistic embodiment coaching that I could do online. So the pandemic really helped me make that shift too. And what ended up finally happening is as we started to make all these shifts and loosen our grip on how we thought this was going to happen, and we opened up and kind of turned over the soil around what we wanted and got really clear about starting to embody that energy and looking for the right opportunity, something came out of left field that we couldn't have imagined. And my grandpa actually ended up passing last year. He lived a nice long life of 95 years. And a family home became available in the exact area that we wanted to live in. And we were able to quickly make a move and slide into purchasing a family home that had a lot of meaning for me and in a really great area. It actually ended up meeting all of our kind of goals that we'd set out for what we wanted for where we wanted to live, and even then some. And it was a way that I really could have not imagined, honestly, beforehand. It had never really occurred to me that would be an option. Obviously, I did not know, certainly that my grandpa would pass. I didn't know the timing of that with our lives and so forth. So this is all I'm sharing this as an example, right, of a lived example of how this kind of process can work in life. And that even though for me, the last 6 months, it felt like a whirlwind, and I've seen, kind of the tip of the iceberg with how change and transformation can happen really quickly when you reorganize around a purpose and a desire that you want to claim and to choose for yourself moving forward in a new way. That sometimes things can happen really quickly. But when I look back, the quickness of the last 6 months really came from that process over the last 5 years of just staying patient and slowly allowing myself to loosen my grip. And that's that decision to move forward, to create something new, loosen my grip on what I'd already created, and lean into that lived experience of embodying and imagining what that might look like, and then starting to really embody it, make all those little micro decisions that then became a tipping point to making a shift and moving forward. And then, really that decision sometimes at the end that looks like that big change is really just a decision to step through what you've already created, the kind of entryway that you've already created. And so what felt for me like really putting my foot on the gas, and if I were to make a fourth step, that would be it. Put your foot on the gas when the way emerges. But that fourth step of really putting your foot on the gas and stepping through the door a lot of times is pretty easy because you've already made the path. So I say this all to encourage you that if you're struggling with moving through, moving from where you are now to where you envision yourself and what you want to create in your life, whether it's with a health goal or relationship life, or you're creating something new in your business, you want to design it in a new way, start a business, or create a new evolution of what you have, to think about it as this kind of creative process. And think about these 3 kind of steps or stages. And I say that loosely because I do think they kind of cycle in between each other. It's not like you go through one and then through the other. I think it's an ongoing process. You're always loosening your grip on the past and stepping into the future. You're always trying to lean in and embody, what that vision is. And then you're always making those decisions that start to move you in that direction. So it's kind of more of a cycle than a stage, but think about leaning into that and how you can develop patience with the process and see the process itself as, in some ways, that's the goal, right? The goal is to be in our creative flow. The goal is to be tuned in with that vision, that's kind of soul level vision we have for ourselves, for our lives, for our families, for our communities, and to be creating it. And that creative process is endless. So it's not an end point. So to create it in a way that feels authentic, that feels in alignment, and that feels good. So, all right. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and I hope that it's landed for you in some way. I'd love to hear your comments. Feel free to leave a review if you really enjoyed this episode, and I will see you in the next episode.
Thanks for listening to the Move from Center podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode and would like to share it with others, please post about it on social media and tag me, or take a moment to leave a rating and review. And to get connected and all the latest from the podcast in your inbox, join the Momentum list to get my tips, tools, and resources for living and leading from your center to create holistic success and a meaningful impact on your own terms.